Welcome, my friends, to a journey into the timeless wisdom of Buddhism. Today, we begin not with abstract philosophy, but with living practices, habits that can transform your everyday life. Whether you are in New York, rushing through the subway crowds, or sitting quietly in a suburban home in California, you know the weight of modern life, stress, constant distraction, and the feeling that peace is always just out of reach. But what if I told you that peace and happiness are not far away? They are here, within you, waiting to be discovered. This video will guide you through 10 daily habits rooted in Buddhist wisdom, each one simple, practical, and proven, both by ancient teachings and modern science. Pause for a moment and picture yourself sitting beside Lake Michigan at sunset. The waves rise and fall, never clinging to one shape, never resisting the flow. In that gentle rhythm, you can feel what the Buddha once taught, that peace is not about controlling life, but about flowing with it. As we explore these 10 habits, you will hear the voices of timeless sutras like the Dhammapada, the Satipatthana Sutta, and the Metta Sutta. You will also hear stories from modern America, the businessman in Chicago who discovered joy through breathing, the grandmother in Texas who healed grief through gratitude, the veteran in Florida who found compassion in his own heart. And because many of you listening are seekers who trust science as much as spirituality, I will share with you research from places like Harvard and the National Institutes of Health. These studies show that meditation can reduce anxiety by 40%, that gratitude practices raise endorphins by 30%, that compassion can heal trauma and lift depression. This journey is designed especially for listeners in America between 30 and 90 years old. I know that many of you prefer to listen, perhaps while driving, perhaps while resting at home, perhaps as a way to fall asleep peacefully. So I will speak slowly, warmly, as if we are sitting together in the same room, letting the words move not just into your ears but into your heart. Here is something important. Peace is not a destination. Peace is a path, a way of walking, a way of breathing, a way of being. You do not need to wait until your life is perfect. You do not need to wait until you have more money, or more time, or fewer worries. You can start today, in this very breath. Imagine holding a notebook in your hands. With each habit we explore, I encourage you to write a few reflections. By the end of this video, you will have not just listened, but practiced. You will have taken the first steps toward making peace and happiness part of your daily routine. Now, you may be wondering, why Buddhism? Why turn to teachings that are thousands of years old? The answer is simple. Because truth does not expire. Because suffering has not changed. Because the same questions that troubled people in ancient India, fear of loss, endless desire, anger, loneliness, still trouble us in modern America. The Buddha taught a way out. Not through blind faith, but through practice. Through breathing, through compassion, through letting go, through mindful living. And today, neuroscience, psychology, and medicine are proving what the Buddha saw clearly under the Bodhi tree, that the mind can be trained, that suffering can be eased, that joy can be cultivated. So, before we step into the first habit, let me ask you a question. What do you long for the most right now? Is it rest? Is it freedom from worry? Is it the feeling of being enough, just as you are? Keep that longing in your heart as we move forward. Let it guide you through the 10 habits, like a lamp guiding your way through the forest. In just a moment, we will begin with the first habit, the practice of daily breathing. But remember, this is not just a lecture. It is an invitation. I invite you to pause, to breathe, to reflect, and to engage. At the end of each habit, I will ask you a simple question. Share your answer in the comments. Not because I need your response, but because when we share, we build a community. In Buddhism, we call this the Sangha, the community that supports us, that walks with us, that reminds us we are not alone. So let us begin. Take a deep breath in. Hold it gently. And as you exhale, release whatever heaviness you carry tonight. You are here. You are safe. And peace is already waiting within you. Let us pause here and reflect on something simple yet profound. Every morning when you open your eyes, you are given a gift, the gift of a new day. Yet how often do we rush past that gift, leaping straight into emails, headlines, worries, and endless lists of tasks? Buddhism reminds us that each moment is precious. The Buddha said in the Dhammapada, "Arise, watchful, for the moment lost cannot be regained." That means peace and happiness are not waiting in the future. They are available in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this sunrise. I want you to imagine something with me. Picture yourself sitting quietly on the porch of a cabin in Yosemite National Park. Around you, tall pines sway in the wind. A stream flows nearby, carrying the snow melt down the mountain. As you breathe, you begin to notice life is happening now. Not on the screen in your pocket, not in the endless planning of tomorrow, but here. This is the kind of presence that these 10 Buddhist habits will invite into your life. They are not heavy disciplines. They are gentle doors opening, one by one, into deeper peace. And remember, these habits are not just for monks in temples. They are for teachers, for nurses, for parents, for retirees, for anyone who wishes to live more fully. Consider the research from Harvard Medical School, showing that even 5 minutes of mindful breathing lowers cortisol by 25%. Or studies from Berkeley demonstrating that gratitude journaling increases happiness by measurable percentages. These numbers confirm what the Buddha taught long ago, that the mind shapes experience, that a trained heart can transform suffering into joy. So as we prepare to walk together through the 10 habits, I want to offer you this perspective. Do not see them as chores. See them as seeds. When you plant a seed, you do not demand that it become a flower overnight. You water it. You tend it. And slowly, quietly, it blooms. Peace and happiness will bloom the same way in you. Not through pressure, not through perfection, but through steady practice. Let me share a small story. A friend of mine, living in Los Angeles, once told me, "I thought happiness would come when I got the big house and the big car, but the happiest moments of my life are actually the mornings when I sit with my daughter, eat breakfast, and simply breathe." That is what these habits are about. Not creating something foreign, but revealing what is already here, the beauty of simple moments. And here is your first gentle challenge before we even step into habit 1. Tonight, before you sleep, pause for just one breath. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly, and whisper to yourself, "Peace is here." As you comment below, I invite you to share one thing you are most curious about in this video. Which habit do you feel could change your life the most? By sharing, you not only commit to your own journey, but also inspire someone else who may be struggling right now. Together, as a community, we will practice. Together, we will discover that happiness is not distant, but as close as the breath in your chest. So, let us take the first step. The first habit is perhaps the most essential. It is the foundation of all the others. It is something you carry with you every moment, though you rarely notice it. It is the breath. In the next section, we will explore how the simple act of breathing can become your doorway into peace. But before we go there, take this moment. Close your eyes if you can. Breathe in, breathe out, and remember, you are not just listening to a video. You are beginning a journey of transformation. Welcome to the path. 1. Daily breathing practice. The first habit is simple, yet it holds the power to transform your entire day. It is the habit of breathing consciously, deeply, lovingly. When the Buddha spoke in the Satipatthana Sutta, he said, "Breathing in, one knows, I breathe in. Breathing out, one knows, I breathe out." That is the foundation of mindfulness. Not running away from the breath, not controlling it, but recognizing it. In America today, breathing often becomes shallow, hurried, almost forgotten. We hold our breath while reading emails. We tighten our chest when stuck in traffic. We barely notice the miracle of oxygen flowing through our lungs. Pause right now and notice your breath. Inhale slowly to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale gently to the count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do you feel the shift? Even this small act begins to calm the nervous system, lowering heart rate, reducing cortisol, and giving the mind space to soften. Science confirms this ancient teaching. A study by the National Institutes of Health showed that just 5 minutes of mindful breathing reduced stress hormones by up to 25%. Another study at Harvard demonstrated that participants who practiced daily breathing reported a 40% drop in anxiety within 8 weeks. But beyond numbers, there is experience. Breathing daily gives you a doorway back to yourself. When the outside world spins, the breath says, "Stay here." Let us bring this into daily American life. Imagine yourself on I-95, traffic jammed, horns blaring. Normally, frustration rises. Why is this happening? I'll be late again. But instead, you turn inward. You feel the breath flowing in and out, steady as the cars moving past. You realize, I cannot control the traffic, but I can choose peace here, now. Or picture yourself waiting in line at a grocery store in Chicago. People are impatient, the line barely moves. Instead of scrolling your phone, you take a conscious breath. You look around, noticing the small kindnesses, the cashier still smiling, a child laughing. The breath turns irritation into appreciation. Let me share a story. John, a businessman from Chicago, faced depression after losing his job. He said to me, "I felt like a failure. I woke up every morning with dread." But a therapist introduced him to daily breathing practice. At first, he thought it was nonsense. But he tried, 2 minutes each morning, just sitting with coffee, breathing in and out. Slowly, he noticed change. The coffee tasted richer. The mornings felt lighter. After 3 months, John said, "I still don't have a job, but I have myself back. I can laugh with my kids. I can enjoy the sunrise. That is wealth too." This is the power of breath. The Dhammapada says, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." And the breath is the direct path inward. Here is a practice you can try every morning. Sit comfortably, back straight. Close your eyes. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 2, breathe out for 6. Do this 5 times. That is all. In less than 2 minutes, you will notice your body soften, your mind quiet, your heart open. Some people tell me, "I don't have time." But let us be honest. How much time do we waste scrolling through news, watching television, or worrying about the future? 2 minutes of breathing can change the entire tone of your day. Think of athletes. The greatest players in the NFL or NBA are trained not only in muscle and speed, but in breath. They know that in the final seconds of a game, the one who can control the breath can control the mind. You too can be that athlete of the spirit. Now, I want you to try something interactive. In the comments below, write, "I choose to breathe." Write it not only for yourself, but as encouragement for others. Because when we see others choosing peace, we are reminded that we can too. Before we continue, let us practice together one more time. Inhale through the nose, 4 counts. Hold gently. Exhale slowly, 6 counts. Feel your shoulders drop, your jaw relax, your heart soften. This is not a trick. This is life itself, arriving fresh, moment by moment. Breathing is not just a physical act, it is also a spiritual anchor. In Buddhist practice, the breath is often called the bridge between the body and the mind. When the mind wanders into the past, replaying mistakes, or races into the future, worrying about what might come, the breath is always here to bring us back. Think about the way a river flows through the land. No matter how chaotic the forest or noisy the city around it, the river continues, steady and true. In the same way, your breath continues, steady and true, carrying life through you. The Buddha once taught, mindfulness of breathing, when developed and pursued, is of great fruit, of great benefit. This was not said for monks alone, but for all beings. In modern America, doctors now prescribe what they call paced breathing or resonance breathing to patients with heart disease, anxiety, and even chronic pain. These practices, tested in clinical trials, mirror the very instructions given in the ancient suttas. Breath slows the heart. Breath calms the nerves. Breath clears the mind. Imagine yourself in a board meeting at work in Washington, D.C. The discussion grows tense, voices rise, you feel your chest tightening. In that moment, instead of snapping or shutting down, you choose to notice your breath. You inhale slowly, exhale fully, and the storm inside begins to pass. Others may still be caught in conflict, but you have returned to center. Or picture yourself as a parent, late at night in a quiet house in Texas, rocking your baby back to sleep. You are exhausted, frustrated, maybe even close to tears. But then you feel your child's tiny breaths against your chest. You sync your own breath with theirs, and suddenly the exhaustion softens into tenderness. This too is mindfulness of breathing. Let me share another true story. David, a retired veteran from Florida, carried trauma from war for decades. He told me, the nightmares never stopped, the anger never stopped. But then he attended a retreat where the only instruction was, follow your breath. At first, he resisted. His mind screamed, his body shook. But he stayed. After several days, he noticed that for the first time in years, he could fall asleep without fear. David said, the breath became my safe place. It was always there when nothing else was. Breathing is not about escape. It is about coming home. The Mayo Clinic published findings showing that veterans practicing daily breathing meditation reduced symptoms of PTSD by up to 35%. Science echoes the Dharma once again. Here is another simple exercise you can try at home. Place your hand gently on your belly. As you inhale, feel the belly rise. As you exhale, feel it fall. Do this 10 times. Each breath is like a wave on the ocean, rising and falling naturally. You do not need to force anything. Just notice. This belly breathing activates the vagus nerve, which signals the brain to relax, lowers blood pressure, and helps digestion. Ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience shaking hands. Now, some of you may be skeptical. You might be thinking, Breathing? How can something so simple change my life? But let me ask you this. What else is as constant as your breath? What else follows you from birth to death? If you can master your relationship with the breath, you can master your relationship with life itself. Let us weave in a teaching from the Dhammapada. As the fletcher shapes the arrow, so the wise man shapes his mind. And what tool does he use to shape it? The breath. So here is today's challenge. Before dinner tonight, pause for 2 minutes. No phone. No television. Just sit, breathe slowly, and notice the difference between the chaos of the world and the calm of your inner space. Then, come back here and comment, "I breathed before dinner." Share your experience. Did the food taste better? Did your family notice your calm? This is how we build community, not just by listening, but by practicing together. As we close this first habit, let us return once more to that image by Lake Michigan. The waves rise, the waves fall. You breathe in, you breathe out. Life continues, steady and true. And as you move forward into habit 2, remember, every breath is a chance to begin again. 2. Cultivating daily gratitude. The second habit is the practice of daily gratitude. Gratitude may sound simple, perhaps even ordinary, but when practiced consistently, it becomes one of the most powerful keys to happiness. In our modern culture, especially in America, we are surrounded by messages that say, "You are not enough. You need a bigger house, a newer phone, a higher salary." Social media intensifies this hunger, showing us curated images of other people's perfect lives. And so, day after day, we compare ourselves and feel lacking. But Buddhism offers a radical shift. The Buddha said in the Itivuttaka, "Contentment is the greatest wealth." Contentment does not mean laziness. It does not mean refusing to grow. It means learning to appreciate the blessings you already hold, so that your pursuit of the future is not poisoned by constant dissatisfaction. Science supports this ancient teaching. A study at the University of California, Berkeley, showed that people who wrote down 3 things they were grateful for each night experienced a 30% increase in happiness within just 3 weeks. Brain scans revealed greater activity in regions associated with joy and empathy. Think about that. Only a few minutes each evening, writing 3 simple lines, can rewire your brain toward happiness. Let me tell you about Mary, a 5-year-old widow from Texas. After losing her husband, she sank into grief and loneliness. Nights felt endless, filled with silence and sorrow. Then she began keeping a gratitude journal. At first, she struggled. "What could I possibly be grateful for?" she asked. But slowly, she began noticing small things: the warmth of her morning tea, the laughter of a neighbor's child, the comfort of her favorite hymn. Over time, her heart softened. She said, "Gratitude did not erase my pain, but it gave me light in the darkness." This is the heart of Buddhist gratitude, not ignoring suffering, but recognizing blessings even in the midst of it. So how do you begin this habit? It is very simple. Each evening, before bed, write down 3 things you are grateful for. They do not have to be dramatic. In fact, the smaller, the better. A smile from a stranger. The taste of fresh strawberries. The way the evening light falls across your living room. Over time, your mind begins to shift. Instead of scanning the day for problems, it begins scanning for blessings. The Buddha taught, "Let us rise up and be grateful, for if we did not learn much today, at least we learned a little." Gratitude turns every moment into enough. Imagine an evening in Central Park, New York. Families spread blankets for a picnic. Children laugh as they chase each other across the grass. The sun sets behind the skyline, painting the sky in orange and pink. To pause in gratitude for such a moment is to taste happiness directly. Gratitude also heals relationships. Studies by the American Psychological Association show that couples who regularly express gratitude report greater intimacy and lower rates of conflict. When you thank your partner for something small, a cooked meal, a gentle word, you remind both of you that love is alive in daily life. Let me ask you, when was the last time you thanked yourself? Not in arrogance, but in compassion. For surviving a difficult season. For showing up even when tired. Gratitude is not only outward, it can also be inward, toward the one person who has carried you through every trial, you. Before we continue deeper into this habit, pause and reflect. Right now, what are 3 things you are grateful for? Write them down if you can. If not, whisper them quietly in your heart. This is how gratitude becomes real, not as an idea, but as a practice. Gratitude is not limited to quiet journaling at night. It can also be expressed aloud, in words and actions, throughout the day. Think of the last time someone sincerely thanked you. Perhaps it was a co-worker appreciating your effort, or a family member acknowledging your care. How did it feel? That warmth, that recognition, is a gift, and you can give it freely to others every day. In Buddhism, gratitude is deeply tied to interdependence. Nothing we have, nothing we are, comes from ourselves alone. Our food comes from farmers, truck drivers, grocers. Our clothes from cotton growers and factory workers. Even our very breath comes from the trees that release oxygen. The Buddha taught, this body is sustained by others. To recognize this truth is to feel gratitude, not just as emotion, but as wisdom. Let's bring this into American daily life. Imagine standing in line at Starbucks in Seattle. The barista hands you your coffee, smiling despite the rush. Instead of grabbing and leaving, you pause, look into their eyes, and say, "Thank you, I really appreciate you." That tiny moment may lift their whole day. And you, too, feel lighter. Or picture Thanksgiving dinner in a family home in Ohio. Before eating, you take a moment not only to pray but to speak your gratitude aloud, for the hands that cooked the meal, for the family gathered, for the chance to be alive another year. Suddenly, the meal becomes more than food, it becomes communion. Modern research agrees. A study from the Greater Good Science Center found that people who practiced gratitude letters, writing letters of thanks to someone they never properly thanked, experienced increased well-being for months afterward. Even if the letter was never sent, the act of writing shifted the heart toward joy. One participant wrote to his high school teacher, decades later, thanking her for encouragement that changed his life. He said, "I felt like I had finally returned a debt of kindness I had carried all these years." This is the beauty of gratitude. It heals both the giver and the receiver. Let me share another story. Carlos, an immigrant father working in New Jersey, often felt invisible, laboring long hours for little recognition. One evening, his teenage son surprised him with a handwritten note. "Dad, thank you for everything you do. I see you. I love you." Carlos wept. He told me, "It was the first time in years I felt truly seen." Gratitude restores dignity. The Buddha also warned about the opposite of gratitude, resentment and envy. These poisons corrode the heart. When we resent others' success, we multiply our own suffering. When we envy, we close our eyes to the abundance already present in our lives. Gratitude is the antidote. Here is a simple practice for you tonight. Before sleeping, recall 3 people who touched your life today, big or small. Whisper silently, "Thank you." You do not even need to tell them aloud, though you can. Just letting your heart speak changes your entire inner climate. Now, let us connect gratitude with the breath. Inhale slowly, and with each inhale think, "Thank you for this breath." Exhale slowly, and with each exhale think, "Thank you for this life." Repeat 5 times. Feel how gratitude and breath weave together, forming a foundation of peace. As we draw this second habit to a close, reflect once more on the Buddha's words, "Contentment is the greatest wealth." We chase many forms of wealth, money, possessions, recognition. But the wealth that never fades is gratitude. With gratitude, you are already rich. So here is your challenge. Tonight, begin a gratitude journal. Write 3 things you are grateful for, and then share one of them in the comments below. By sharing, you shine light for others, reminding them of their own blessings. Together, we build not only gratitude but community. And now, let us step into the third habit, one that flows naturally from gratitude, the practice of compassion for yourself. 3. Practicing compassion for yourself. The third habit may surprise you. It is not about doing more for others, not about external discipline, but about how you treat yourself. This habit is the practice of self-compassion. In Buddhism, compassion metta is often taught as boundless loving kindness, extending to all beings. But the Buddha also emphasized that compassion must begin with ourselves. The Metta Sutta says, "Just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so let one cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings." Notice the mother's love begins with her own child, close to her heart. In the same way, your practice of compassion must begin with you, close to your own heart. And yet, in America today, self-compassion is rare. We are taught to be productive, competitive, flawless. When we make mistakes, we criticize ourselves harshly. "I'm so stupid. I should have done better. I'll never succeed." These inner voices wound us more deeply than the words of others. But what if you spoke to yourself the way you would speak to a dear friend? Would you tell your friend, "You're worthless"? Or would you say, "It's okay. You tried. You can learn and keep going"? Kristin Neff, a researcher at the University of Texas, pioneered the science of self-compassion. Her studies show that people who practice self-compassion are less depressed, less anxious, and more resilient after failure. Self-compassion is not weakness, it is strength with kindness. Let's make this practical. Tomorrow morning, when you look in the mirror, instead of rushing past your reflection with judgment, pause. Place your hand on your heart. Whisper to yourself, "I forgive my mistakes. I choose kindness." At first, this may feel awkward, even silly. But remember, habits are built through repetition. Consider the story of David, a retired veteran in Florida. For years, he lived with PTSD. He told me, "I hated myself for not being stronger, for not protecting my friends, for surviving when others didn't." But when he learned to practice self-compassion, repeating daily affirmations like, "I am human, I am healing, I am worthy of peace," his nightmares softened. He began sleeping better. He reconnected with his family. David said, "For the first time, I felt like I was on my own side." The Mayo Clinic found that veterans practicing compassion meditation reported a 35% reduction in depression symptoms. Ancient wisdom confirmed once again by modern science. But self-compassion is not just for trauma survivors. It is for everyone. Imagine a young mother in California, juggling work, childcare, and aging parents. One evening, exhausted, she burns dinner. Her first impulse is to scold herself, "I can't do anything right." But instead, she takes a breath. She says gently, "It's okay, I'm tired, tomorrow is another day." And in that moment, she transforms frustration into forgiveness. Or picture a college student in Boston failing an exam. The temptation is to drown in shame. But with self-compassion, he says, "This does not define me. I can learn. I can try again." This mindset does not erase effort, it empowers it. The Buddha once said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." Let those words sink in. So, here is a simple exercise. Tonight, write down one mistake you made today. Then, write the words you would say to a dear friend who made the same mistake. Finally, speak those words to yourself. This practice rewires the inner voice from critic to companion. Self-compassion also protects us from burnout. In a society that constantly demands more hours, more achievements, more productivity, we often push ourselves until we collapse. But when we practice kindness toward ourselves, we give our minds and bodies the rest they need to recover. Healthcare workers in New York, during the peak of the pandemic, reported astonishing levels of exhaustion. Some hospitals introduced brief compassion-based meditations for staff. Just 10 minutes of breathing with phrases like, "May I be safe, may I be strong, may I find peace," led to measurable decreases in stress and improved sleep. Compassion became medicine. Another benefit of self-compassion is courage. When we know we will not attack ourselves for failing, we are more willing to take risks, to try new things, to grow. Psychologists call this a safe inner base. Think of athletes again. A gymnast who berates herself for every mistake will freeze under pressure. But one who says, "It's okay, keep going," will recover and shine. The same is true for you. Let me share a story from Boston. Emily, a young lawyer, confessed, "I live with constant imposter syndrome. I feel like a fraud, always waiting to be exposed." Through therapy, she learned self-compassion phrases. "I am learning, I am growing, mistakes are part of the path." Over months, her confidence grew. Emily said, "I still work hard, but now I can breathe. I am no longer my own enemy." The Buddha taught that hatred never ends through hatred, but only through love. This applies not only to others, but also to ourselves. Hatred of the self cannot produce peace. Only love of the self can. Here is another exercise. Stand before a mirror. Look into your own eyes. Whisper 3 phrases. "May I be safe, may I be peaceful, may I live with ease." Repeat them 3 times. Notice any resistance that arises. That resistance is the old habit of self-criticism. With practice, it will soften. Science confirms the impact. Studies at Stanford University show that self-compassion training increases resilience, reduces shame, and boosts motivation more effectively than self-criticism. Kindness, not cruelty, is the fuel for lasting growth. Now, I want to invite you to imagine yourself as a child. Picture a younger version of you, maybe 6 or 7 years old. See their face, their innocence, their hopes. Would you criticize that child the way you criticize yourself now? Or would you comfort them, guide them, protect them? Self-compassion is learning to speak to yourself the way you would speak to that child. A story comes from Denver. A man named Robert carried decades of shame from childhood mistakes. During a meditation retreat, he was asked to visualize his younger self and say, "I forgive you, I love you." He wept for hours. Later he said, "It was the first time I felt whole." This is the healing power of compassion turned inward. So, let us close this habit with a challenge. Tonight, write down one thing you usually criticize yourself for. Then, replace it with one compassionate phrase. For example, instead of "I'm lazy," write "I'm resting so I can be strong tomorrow." And in the comments below, share one phrase of self-compassion you are willing to practice this week. Perhaps, "I forgive myself," or "I am worthy of peace." By sharing, you remind others that they too deserve kindness. As we move to habit 4, remember, compassion for yourself is not selfishness. It is the soil from which compassion for others grows. 4. Accepting impermanence. The fourth habit is to remember impermanence. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent. In Pali, this is called anicca, one of the 3 marks of existence. To understand impermanence is to free ourselves from clinging, from the desperate need to hold on to what will inevitably change. Look around your life. The seasons shift. The leaves turn from green to gold to brown, then fall. The people you love grow older, as do you. Joy arises, fades, returns again. Pain arrives, stays a while, then passes. Nothing at all remains the same. And yet, we resist. We cling to youth, to possessions, to relationships, to status. We say, "I want this to last forever." But impermanence whispers back, "No, this too shall pass." Instead of fearing this truth, Buddhism invites us to embrace it. Imagine walking through a forest in New England in autumn. The trees are ablaze with color: red, orange, yellow. For a moment, the beauty steals your breath. But you also know these leaves will fall. Winter will come. And yet, because you know this, you treasure the moment more deeply. This is the gift of impermanence. It teaches us to cherish the present. The Dhammapada says, "All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering." Science also confirms the value of accepting change. A study at Harvard found that people who learned to frame life events as temporary showed 28% greater resilience after setbacks. They were less likely to sink into depression and more likely to adapt with creativity. Let me share a story. A teacher in Boston went through a painful divorce. At first, she resisted. "This can't be happening. I'll never recover." She clung to the past, replaying memories like broken records. But when she began to meditate on impermanence, she slowly realized nothing lasts, not even heartbreak. She told me, "Impermanence didn't erase my grief, but it gave me hope. It reminded me that this pain, too, would change." Impermanence is not meant to make us cold. It is meant to make us wise. Think about it this way. If you knew a flower would last forever, would you rush to smell its fragrance today? Probably not. But because you know the bloom is fleeting, you lean in, inhale, and savor its sweetness. So too with our lives. Awareness of impermanence deepens our appreciation. Here is a practice for you. Each day, choose one small thing and notice its change. Watch ice melting in a glass. Observe the sky shifting from morning to afternoon. Listen as a song begins, swells, and ends. Train yourself to see impermanence everywhere, and instead of despair, you will feel gratitude for the fleeting beauty. Another story comes from a man in Seattle who lost his job unexpectedly. At first, he panicked. "My career is over. My life is ruined." But with guidance, he meditated on impermanence. He remembered past struggles that had also passed. Within months, he found a new path, different but fulfilling. He said, "Impermanence turned what I thought was an ending into a beginning." Impermanence is not the enemy of stability. It is the teacher of resilience. Impermanence also teaches us humility. No matter how high we rise, no matter how strong or beautiful we may feel today, time will eventually soften us, just as the ocean smooths even the sharpest stone. When we accept this truth, arrogance fades and compassion grows. Think of Wall Street. Fortunes rise and fall overnight. One year the market is booming, the next it collapses. For those who believe their worth is tied only to wealth, such change feels like death. But for those who understand impermanence, even financial loss becomes bearable. They know that just as decline comes, so too does recovery. The Buddha compared life to a dewdrop on a blade of grass shining in the morning sun, gone by noon. At first, this may sound sad, but it is also liberating. If everything is fleeting, then our mistakes, our shame, our failures are fleeting too. This truth is especially comforting in times of grief. When someone we love passes away, the pain feels eternal. Yet over months and years, the pain shifts. It softens. Memories remain, love remains, but the raw wound transforms. A woman in New Jersey shared with me, "When my father died, I thought I would never smile again, but impermanence gave me permission to believe that even grief changes." Modern psychology echoes this. Therapists often teach clients the phrase, "Feelings are like waves, they rise, they peak, they fall." This mirrors Buddhist insight perfectly. Here's a simple reflection exercise. Take an object near you, perhaps a flower, a candle, or even your own hand. Spend 1 minute noticing its details. Then remind yourself, this will change. The flower will wilt. The candle will burn out. Even this hand will one day wrinkle and fade. At first, this thought may sting, but keep breathing. Soon, you may feel a surprising tenderness, even love, for the fragile beauty before you. Impermanence also frees us from clinging to negative states. Anger, jealousy, anxiety, they too are impermanent. When rage burns, we may think, "This will last forever." But if we breathe and wait, it passes, just as storms pass across the sky. The Heart Sutra says, "Form is emptiness, emptiness is form." This is another way of pointing to impermanence, that nothing holds a fixed essence, that everything is in motion, flowing, transforming. So here is today's challenge. Choose one moment of change you notice today. It could be the sun setting, a flower drooping, a mood shifting. Instead of resisting, whisper, "This is impermanence, and this too is life." Then, in the comments, share, what moment of impermanence did you observe today? Your story may help someone else release their fear and embrace change with courage. As we close this habit, remember, impermanence is not here to frighten you. It is here to remind you that every moment is precious, that nothing ugly lasts forever, that beauty shines brighter because it fades. And with this wisdom in your heart, we now step into the fifth habit, living ethically, moment by moment, as a path to peace. 5. Living ethically every day. The fifth habit is to live ethically each day. In Buddhism, this is called sila, ethical conduct. It is not about rigid rules or punishment, but about choosing actions that bring peace instead of harm. The Buddha summarized ethics simply: avoid evil, cultivate good, and purify the mind. These 3 steps are a compass for daily life. So what does living ethically mean in modern America? It may not be about grand decisions, but about the hundreds of small choices you make every day. Do I speak truth or lie? Do I consume more than I need or practice moderation? Do I act with kindness or with selfishness? Think of Wall Street, where fortunes can be made through clever deals. The temptation to bend truth, to manipulate numbers, is strong. But when someone chooses honesty instead, they live with a clear conscience. They may earn less money in the short term, but they gain peace in the long term. Consider a lawyer in Washington, D.C. She once told me, "The greatest relief of my career came not from winning cases, but from refusing to lie to the court. I could sleep at night." This is ethical living, aligning outer actions with inner values. Psychologists call this integrity alignment. Studies show that people who act consistently with their values report lower anxiety and higher life satisfaction. Why? Because when your words and actions match your heart, there is no war inside you. The Buddha taught 5 precepts as a foundation for lay people. Do not kill. Do not steal. Do not misuse sexuality. Do not lie. Do not intoxicate the mind. These are not commandments, they are practices that protect peace. Take the first precept, not killing. In modern life, this can mean practicing kindness toward animals or reducing violence in speech. Take the 4th precept, not lying. In business meetings, it may mean telling uncomfortable truths rather than selling false promises. Each precept becomes a daily compass. Let's imagine an everyday scene. You're at the grocery store in California and the cashier gives you too much change. You could walk away richer, but instead you return the money. In that small act, your heart feels light. You know you chose peace over greed. Or picture a teenager in Chicago. His friends pressure him to drink until blackout. He remembers the 5th precept and chooses moderation. The next morning, he wakes without regret, grateful for clarity. Living ethically is not always easy. Sometimes it feels like swimming upstream in a culture of shortcuts. But the reward is deep: trust, respect, and inner calm. A study in positive psychology found that people who rated honesty as a daily practice reported fewer feelings of guilt and shame. Their relationships were stronger because others knew they could be trusted. The Buddha said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." This is ethical speech. Not gossip, not slander, not falsehood, but words that heal and build. Here is a practice for you. Tonight, review your day and ask, did my actions bring harm or peace? Write down one moment you lived ethically and one moment you could improve. Reflect gently, without judgment, and set an intention for tomorrow. Living ethically is not about perfection. It is about direction. Every time you choose honesty over deceit, kindness over cruelty, moderation over excess, you step closer to peace. Think of ethics like a garden. You may not be able to control every weed, but if you water seeds of goodness daily, the garden grows vibrant. Another story comes from Los Angeles. Michael, a young entrepreneur, built his startup quickly, but he cut corners, exaggerated numbers, and misled investors. The company collapsed, and so did his health from stress. Later, he began volunteering at a food bank, practicing honesty even in small interactions. He said, "For the first time, I feel free. I may not be rich, but I can look people in the eye." This is the peace that ethical living brings, freedom from the heavy burden of lies. The Buddha often described ethical living as building strong foundations. Without sila, meditation becomes shaky, like trying to build a house on sand. But with sila, the heart is stable, and wisdom naturally arises. Let's also consider community. In America today, trust in institutions is low. People doubt politicians, corporations, even neighbors. But when one person lives ethically, it restores faith, even if only in a small circle. That trust then spreads outward like ripples in a pond. Harvard's Human Flourishing Program found that ethical integrity is strongly correlated with higher levels of life satisfaction, health, and even longevity. Doing good literally helps you live longer. Here's a small exercise. Tomorrow, pick one of the 5 precepts and practice it consciously all day. For example, if you choose truthful speech, pause before every conversation and ask, is this true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? At night, reflect on how it changed your interactions. A story from a mother in Texas illustrates this beautifully. She used to yell at her children in anger. After studying the precepts, she paused before speaking. One day, instead of shouting, she chose gentleness. She told me, "The look on my child's face, relief instead of fear, showed me the power of ethical speech." Ethical living also means respecting yourself. When you break your own values, guilt gnaws at you. But when you honor your values, you walk with dignity. The Buddha compared ethical discipline to armor. Just as armor protects a soldier, ethics protects the heart from regret. So here is today's challenge. Choose one action you can take tomorrow that aligns with ethical living, returning a lost item, speaking the truth, refraining from gossip, or choosing moderation. Then, in the comments, share, "My ethical choice today is..." By declaring it, you inspire others to join in, and together we create a community of integrity. As we close this 5th habit, remember, living ethically does not make you less free. It makes you more free, because you no longer live in fear of being discovered or undone. Your life becomes simple, clear, and strong. And with this strength, we are ready for the 6th habit, generosity, learning the joy of giving without expectation. Sais, practicing generosity. The 6th habit is generosity. In Buddhism, generosity is called dana. It is the act of giving freely, without expectation of return. The Buddha taught that generosity is the very beginning of the path, because when we give, we loosen the grip of greed and open the heart to joy. Generosity does not mean you must give away everything you own. It means cultivating a spirit of sharing, whether it is money, time, attention, or kindness. Think of modern America. On Black Friday, crowds rush into stores, desperate to consume. People fight over televisions, gadgets, and deals. The hunger for more leaves emptiness afterward. Now picture the opposite, a small-town farmer's market in Ohio. A woman buys fresh apples and gives one to a homeless man nearby. His smile lights up the morning. That single apple becomes more nourishing than any discount television. The Buddha said in the Diamond Sutra, "Practice generosity without clinging to the idea of giver, receiver, or gift." True generosity is free from ego, no pride in giving, no shame in receiving, no attachment to the gift. Science confirms this wisdom. Researchers at the Greater Good Science Center found that people who performed 5 small acts of kindness in 1 week reported a 20% increase in happiness. Another study showed that even giving as little as $5 to someone else increased well-being more than spending it on oneself. Generosity changes the brain. MRI scans reveal that acts of giving activate the brain's reward centers, releasing dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals that bond us to loved ones. Let me tell you a story. Sarah, a homemaker in Ohio, struggled financially. Yet each week she cooked an extra meal and delivered it to a neighbor in need. She told me it didn't solve all their problems, but it reminded both of us that we are not alone. Her small generosity blossomed into a friendship that sustained them through difficult times. Generosity also heals divisions. In a world often fractured by politics, race, or class, the simple act of giving transcends barriers. A smile, a meal, a listening ear, these are gifts that unite us in our shared humanity. Here is a practice you can try. Each week, choose one small act of generosity. It could be buying coffee for the person behind you in line. It could be calling a lonely friend and offering your time. Or simply holding the door for a stranger with mindfulness and kindness. Generosity does not diminish you. It expands you. Generosity is not measured by size, it is measured by heart. A billionaire may give millions and feel nothing, while a child may give half a sandwich and feel joy overflowing. The Buddha praised the gift of a handful of rice given with sincerity more than treasures offered with pride. In American culture, we sometimes mistake generosity for charity alone. But generosity is broader. It is a smile, a listening ear, a helping hand. Imagine this. A commuter in New York notices a stranger drop their wallet. He picks it up and runs after them, returning it without hesitation. The stranger's relief, the commuter's quiet satisfaction, this is Dana in action. Or picture a nurse in Chicago after a 12-hour shift. Exhausted, she still pauses to comfort a patient with a kind word and a gentle touch. That moment of generosity may heal more deeply than any medicine. The Buddha also warned about attachment in giving. If we give to show off or to expect praise, the gift loses purity. But when we give without self, both giver and receiver are liberated. Let me share another story. James, a retired teacher in Michigan, volunteered at a local shelter after losing his wife. At first, he said, "I thought I was helping them." But over time, he realized, they helped me. Their gratitude filled my empty heart. Generosity gave him purpose when grief had left him adrift. Modern science shows that generosity strengthens social bonds. A study published in Psychological Science found that couples who practiced daily, small acts of giving, like making tea for each other, reported higher relationship satisfaction than couples who only expressed gratitude verbally. Generosity in action creates trust, intimacy, and joy. Here is a simple practice you can try today. Take a dollar bill, or even a coin, and place it somewhere someone will find it, with a note that says, "May this bring you joy." Do not wait to be thanked. Simply give and walk away. Notice how your own heart feels lighter. Another practice, give your attention. In a world of constant distraction, your full presence is one of the rarest gifts. Next time someone speaks to you, put down your phone, look into their eyes, and truly listen. This form of generosity costs nothing, yet it may be priceless to the one who receives it. As we close this sixth habit, remember the Buddha's words, "If beings knew, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given." So here is your challenge. This week, choose one act of generosity, big or small, and practice it with no expectation of return. Then share your experience in the comments below. What did you give? How did it feel? By sharing, you encourage others to discover the joy of giving. And now, with the heart opened by generosity, we move to the seventh habit, speaking truthfully. choosing words that heal rather than harm. 7. Speaking truthfully. The seventh habit is speaking truthfully. In Buddhism, this is part of the Noble Eightfold Path, called right speech. Right speech means more than avoiding lies. It means using words that heal instead of harm, words that bring clarity instead of confusion. The Buddha taught, "Speak only the truth, speak what is kind, speak what is useful, and do not speak if it brings harm." In America today, we are drowning in words. News cycles, social media posts, constant chatter, so much is spoken, and yet so little brings peace. Gossip spreads quickly. Lies travel faster than truth. And angry words fracture families, communities, even nations. But words can also heal. Think of a moment when someone told you, sincerely, "I believe in you," or "I love you just as you are." Those words may have changed the course of your life. The American Psychological Association reports that couples who communicate with honesty and kindness experience 30% more relationship satisfaction. Why? Because truth builds trust. Let me share a story. A journalist in Los Angeles once confessed, "I made my career on sharp words, exposés, criticism, tearing others down, but I realized my words left me bitter and alone." She began practicing right speech, writing stories of resilience and hope instead of scandal. She said, "For the first time, my words felt like medicine." Right speech has 4 elements: no lies, no gossip, no harsh speech, no idle chatter that wastes the heart. Imagine a family dinner in Texas. A heated debate erupts over politics. Normally, harsh words would fly, wounds would form. But one person pauses, breathes, and says calmly, "I respect you, even if we disagree." The tone shifts. Tension softens. That is right speech in action. Or picture a workplace in New York. Rumors swirl about layoffs. Colleagues gossip, spreading fear. But one employee refuses to join, choosing instead to offer reassurance. "Let's wait for facts, and in the meantime, support each other." Trust grows where panic once was. Words can be like arrows once released, they cannot return. But they can also be like seeds planting kindness that blooms long after the sound fades. Here's a simple practice. Before speaking, ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? If the answer is yes, speak with confidence. If not, choose silence. Silence, too, can be a form of right speech. The Dhammapada says, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." So let us practice together. Think of one person in your life who needs encouragement. This week, tell them sincerely, "I appreciate you," or "I'm grateful you are in my life." Notice how both of you feel uplifted. Truthful speech is also about timing. Even true words can wound if spoken without care. Imagine telling a friend harsh criticism in the middle of their grief. The truth may be real, but the timing destroys rather than heals. The Buddha taught that right speech is not just truth, but truth spoken at the right time, in the right way, for the right reason. Let's bring this into American life. A manager in Chicago needs to correct an employee's mistake. Instead of shaming them in front of others, he waits until they are alone, speaks gently, and offers guidance. The employee learns without humiliation, and trust grows stronger. Another example, a teenager in Florida spreads gossip about a classmate online. Later, she practices mindfulness, deletes the post, and apologizes face to face. That act of truthful speech repairs what gossip had broken. Psychologists at the University of Pennsylvania found that students trained in mindful communication had lower levels of bullying and higher levels of peer support. This is the power of right speech in schools. Let me share a personal story from Denver. A man named Thomas struggled with anger. He admitted, "I used words like weapons. I could win arguments, but I lost friends." Through Buddhist practice, he began pausing before speaking, choosing words like bridges instead of blades. Over time, his relationships healed. He told me, "The greatest victory of my life was learning to say less, but with more love." This is why the Buddha encouraged silence when words do not serve peace. Silence is not weakness. It is strength, the strength to resist fueling conflict. Here is a simple exercise for you. For one day, commit to no gossip. If someone begins gossiping around you, breathe, smile, and gently change the subject. At the end of the day, notice how much lighter your heart feels without carrying other people's negativity. Another exercise: write down one phrase of encouragement you can share with a loved one this week. Speak it aloud. Then reflect on how it shifted the energy between you. The Buddha's teaching is clear. Whatever words we utter should be chosen with care, for people will hear them and be influenced for good or ill. So here is your challenge. In the comments, share one sentence of truth and kindness you plan to speak this week. Perhaps, "I forgive you," or "I am proud of you." By speaking these words aloud in community, we spread ripples of truth and healing far beyond ourselves. As we step into the next habit, remember this: words are not just sounds, they are seeds. Plant them with wisdom, and they will bloom into peace. Now we turn to the 8th habit, learning to let go of emotions, releasing anger and clinging, and discovering freedom through surrender. 8. Letting go of emotions. The 8th habit is learning to let go of emotions. In Buddhism, suffering often arises not from the emotions themselves, but from our clinging to them. The Pali word upadana means attachment, grasping, holding too tightly. When anger comes, we grasp it and feed it. When sadness comes, we replay it endlessly. The result is suffering multiplied. But emotions, like clouds, are impermanent. They rise, they drift, they pass. The Buddha taught, just as a storm passes, so too does anger, if we do not cling to it. Imagine being stuck in traffic on the 405 freeway in Los Angeles. Cars honk, frustration builds, your jaw tightens. The mind says, "This is unbearable, I'm trapped." But if you pause, breathe, and remind yourself, this too will pass, the anger softens. The traffic eventually clears, and so does the storm inside. Science confirms the power of release. A study at Yale University showed that expressive writing, journaling about emotions, reduced anger and anxiety levels by 30%. By putting feelings onto paper, people stopped clinging to them, allowing the mind to let go. Here is a practice you can try. When a strong emotion arises, instead of suppressing it or exploding with it, take a notebook. Write freely for 5 minutes. Do not censor. When finished, close the notebook and whisper, "I release this." Let me share a story. Michael, an artist in Seattle, lost his brother unexpectedly. Overwhelmed by grief, he drank heavily and isolated himself. A counselor suggested a Buddhist-inspired practice: write letters to his brother expressing all his anger, sorrow, and love. After writing, he burned the letters safely, watching the smoke rise. Michael said, "It was as if the weight lifted from my chest. I still miss him, but I no longer drown." This is the power of letting go. Another Buddhist metaphor compares emotions to guests in a house. Some guests are pleasant, some unpleasant, but none stay forever. The wise host welcomes them, offers space, and lets them leave when it is time. In modern America, emotions are often suppressed. We say, "Be strong, don't cry." But suppression only buries emotions alive. They resurface later, sharper than before. Letting go is not suppression. It is acknowledgement without attachment. Picture a father in Chicago who loses his temper with his children. Later, instead of drowning in guilt, he sits quietly, breathes, and says, "That anger came and went. I can choose differently next time." In this way, he learns without self-punishment. The Buddha said, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned." So let us practice together. Recall a recent anger or sadness. Breathe in and silently say, "This is anger." Breathe out and say, "I release you." Repeat 3 times. Notice how naming and releasing already loosens its grip. Letting go of emotions is also about trust. Trust that you do not need to control every feeling. Trust that emotions, like tides, will rise and fall naturally. In therapy circles, this is sometimes called urge surfing. When anger or craving appears, you ride it like a wave, observing, breathing, waiting until it fades. The Buddha taught the same long ago. Observe without clinging, and the storm will calm itself. Let me share a story from New York. Anna, a high-powered executive, often exploded in meetings. She later regretted her words, but felt powerless to change. A meditation teacher guided her to pause and silently label her feelings. This is frustration. By naming it, she created space between stimulus and response. Over months, she transformed from reactive to responsive. Anna said, "I realized I didn't have to be a prisoner of my emotions." Science supports this technique. UCLA researchers found that simply labeling emotions reduced activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and increased regulation from the prefrontal cortex. In other words, naming feelings helps tame them. Another Buddhist practice is compassion toward emotions themselves. Instead of hating your anger, you say, "Hello anger, I see you." You treat it gently, as you would a crying child. Paradoxically, this kindness helps the emotion release more quickly. Imagine sitting on your porch in Texas as a thunderstorm rolls in. The sky darkens, the rain pours, the thunder roars. You cannot stop the storm, but you can watch it, knowing it will pass. So too with emotions. Letting go also frees relationships. Couples who cling to every slight, replaying old arguments, live in bitterness. But those who release and forgive experience renewed intimacy. The American Psychological Association found that forgiveness practices reduced stress and improved cardiovascular health. A man in Florida shared, "I used to hold grudges for years, but when I learned to let go, my chest felt lighter, my friendships returned, and even my blood pressure dropped." Here's a simple exercise for you tonight. Write down one resentment you've carried. Read it aloud, softly. Then tear the paper or safely burn it, saying, "I release you." Feel the symbolic act ease the heart. The Buddha compared clinging to emotions to holding a rope that is burning your hands. The sooner you let go, the sooner the pain ends. So here is your challenge. This week, when anger or sadness arises, pause for 3 breaths and whisper, "This will pass." Then, in the comments, share your experience. What emotion did you release? and how did it feel? By sharing, you remind others that freedom is possible. As we step into the next habit, carry this truth with you. Emotions are visitors, not masters. Welcome them, learn from them, and let them go. Now we turn to habit 9, sharing joy, learning to celebrate the happiness of others as if it were your own. 9. Sharing joy. The 9th habit is sharing joy. In Buddhism, this is called mudita, the practice of feeling happiness for the happiness of others. This may sound simple, but in reality, it is one of the most challenging habits to cultivate. Why? Because our culture often trains us in comparison and competition. When someone else succeeds, we feel envy. When a colleague gets promoted, when a neighbor buys a bigger house, when a friend loses weight, our first thought may be, why not me? But the Buddha taught that joy multiplies when shared. Just as a candle loses nothing by lighting another, your happiness is not reduced by celebrating someone else's success. Imagine being at a graduation ceremony in Denver. The young student walks across the stage, family cheering loudly. Even if it is not your child, you can smile, clap, and feel the warmth of accomplishment in the air. That is mudita happiness, unbound by ego. A study at UC Davis found that people who actively practiced celebrating others' achievements reported higher life satisfaction and lower feelings of loneliness. Sharing joy creates connection instead of division. Let me share a story. A coach in Colorado once told me, "At first, I competed with everyone, even my own players. But when I learned to celebrate their victories instead of fearing them, my life became lighter. Their joy became my joy." His team flourished, not just in wins, but in spirit. Think about your own workplace. When a colleague is praised, do you shrink with jealousy or expand with joy? The choice matters not just for them, but for your own peace. The Buddha said, "Rejoice in the merit of others. In doing so, you grow your own." Here's a practice. Today, when you hear good news about someone else, pause and say silently, "May your happiness continue." Notice how your heart softens instead of hardens. Sharing joy is also a medicine for envy. Envy poisons the heart, whispering, "You are not enough." Mudita answers, "You are enough, and so are they. Their light does not dim yours." Sharing joy is also about breaking cycles of competition. In modern America, workplaces, schools, even families can become battlegrounds of comparison. Who earns more? Who looks better? Who achieves faster? But when one person chooses to celebrate instead of compete, the whole atmosphere changes. Let me give an example. In a corporate office in New York, a woman named Rachel noticed how tense meetings became whenever promotions were announced. Colleagues congratulated one another through clenched teeth. Rachel decided to practice mudita. She wrote a heartfelt note to the person promoted, "Your dedication inspires me. I'm genuinely happy for your success." That small act melted tension. Others began to echo her joy, and slowly the culture shifted from rivalry to support. Science explains why this works. Studies show that when we celebrate others, our brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. This chemical strengthens trust and deepens relationships. Mudita also extends beyond humans. Picture yourself walking in Yosemite National Park. You see deer grazing peacefully, birds soaring above, flowers blooming brightly. To smile at their beauty, to feel happiness that life flourishes around you, that too is sharing joy. Another story comes from Atlanta. A man named Kevin struggled with envy toward his brother, who was more successful financially. Every family gathering became painful. But after studying Buddhist practice, Kevin began intentionally complimenting his brother, even praying for his continued happiness. Over time, envy faded. He said, "When I stopped competing, I realized his success didn't hurt me, it lifted our whole family." The Buddha often praised mudita as one of the Brahma Viharas, the four immeasurable states of the heart, along with loving kindness, compassion, and equanimity. These are limitless qualities meant to expand without boundary. Here is a practice for you. This week, when you hear about someone else's good fortune, whether a friend buying a new home, a colleague receiving recognition, or even a stranger winning a prize, pause. Smile genuinely. Whisper, "May your joy continue, may it bring peace." Notice how your own joy increases instead of decreases. As we close this 9th habit, remember, joy is not a limited resource. Like fire, it spreads without diminishing. The more you celebrate others, the more joy burns brightly in your own heart. So here is your challenge. In the comments, share one recent moment when you celebrated someone else's happiness. How did it feel? Did it lighten your heart? By sharing, you remind others that joy multiplies when shared. And now, with our hearts expanded by mudita, we step into the 10th and final habit, reconnecting with nature, remembering that we are part of a vast, living world. 10. Connecting with nature. The 10th habit is reconnecting with nature. The Buddha often taught outdoors under trees, beside rivers, on mountainsides. He knew that nature itself is a teacher, reminding us of impermanence, interdependence, and simplicity. In our modern lives, especially in America, we are often cut off from this teacher. Screens consume our attention. Hours pass indoors under artificial light. We forget the sky above us, the earth beneath our feet, the living world that sustains us. Yet research shows the cost of this disconnection. A study from the National Institutes of Health found that spending just 20 minutes in nature reduced cortisol, the stress hormone, by 32%. Blood pressure lowered, mood lifted, anxiety softened. The Buddha said, "The forest is a special kind of teacher. Those who dwell there will find joy in the silence." Imagine walking in Yosemite National Park. Granite cliffs rise, waterfalls cascade, birds soar freely. In such a place, your worries shrink, your breath deepens, your heart feels wide as the sky. Or picture a farmer in the Midwest, standing in his field at dawn. The soil is cool beneath his boots, the horizon glowing pink and gold. He pauses, breathes, and feels his connection to earth, rain, seed, and Sunday. This is mindfulness born of nature. Nature also teaches impermanence. Flowers bloom and wither. Rivers swell and dry. Seasons turn without pause. To observe these changes is to see our own lives mirrored in the world around us. Let me share a story. Maria, a teacher in California, felt suffocated by stress, endless grading, household chores, and constant notifications on her phone. On a friend's advice, she began walking in a nearby park each evening, leaving her phone at home. At first, she felt restless, even guilty. But after several weeks, she noticed a shift. The sound of wind in the trees calmed her racing thoughts. Watching ducks on the pond brought a quiet smile. Maria told me, "Nature gave me back my breath." The Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, has shown similar benefits. Doctors there prescribe time in forests as treatment for stress and depression. The Buddha knew this long before science confirmed it. Here is a simple practice. Once a week, take a mindful walk outside. Leave your phone behind or put it on silent. As you walk, Notice three things: the sky above, the earth beneath, and the breath within. Whisper silently, "I am part of this." Nature dissolves the illusion of separation. You are not apart from the earth. You are earth breathing, earth walking, earth aware of itself. Nature also teaches us humility. Standing before the Grand Canyon or looking up at the night sky over Montana, we realize how small we are. And yet, this smallness is not weakness, it is wonder. It reminds us that we are part of something vast and mysterious. The Buddha said, "Truly, within this fathom-long body are the world, the origin of the world, and the ending of the world." Nature outside mirrors the nature within. Think of modern life. Screens keep us awake until midnight, flooded with artificial light. But step outside, watch the sun set, and your body naturally begins to rest. The rhythm of nature restores the rhythm of the heart. Let me share another story. Daniel, a farmer in Iowa, struggled with anxiety during drought years. He feared losing everything. But through Buddhist practice, he learned to see his crops as teachers of impermanence. Some years abundant, some years scarce. He told me, "The earth taught me patience. I learned to trust the cycle, to sow with care, and release the rest." Science echoes this wisdom. A Stanford University study found that people who walked in natural settings reported a 20% decrease in rumination, the mental looping that fuels depression. Nature literally clears the mind. Here's a practice you can try this week. Go outside at night. Look up at the stars. Breathe deeply and whisper, "I belong to this universe." Feel how your worries shrink in the vastness of the sky. Or sit beside a river. Watch the water flow, carrying leaves and twigs downstream. Imagine your own worries floating with them, moving on, dissolving into the ocean of life. Nature also awakens gratitude. Every meal you eat is the gift of soil, rain, sunlight, and human hands. Every breath you take is the gift of trees and oceans releasing oxygen. To reconnect with nature is to bow in gratitude for every element that sustains you. So here is your challenge. This week, spend 10 minutes in nature, whether in a park, a backyard, or simply standing under the open sky. Put away distractions. Breathe, look, listen. Then share in the comments, where did you connect with nature and how did it change you? As we close this 10th habit, remember, nature is not separate from you. You are nature, awake and aware. To reconnect with the earth is to reconnect with your own deepest peace. And now, with all 10 habits explored, we are ready for the conclusion of this journey, gathering the wisdom together and stepping into daily practice. We have walked together through 10 Buddhist habits, each one a doorway to inner peace and lasting happiness. We began with the breath, simple, steady, always with us. Breathing consciously reminded us that peace can be found in every inhale, every exhale. We learned the power of gratitude, transforming dissatisfaction into appreciation, scarcity into abundance. We practiced compassion for ourselves, learning to replace self-criticism with kindness, to treat our own hearts as gently as we would a dear friend. We accepted impermanence, understanding that all things rise and pass away, and that wisdom comes from cherishing the moment rather than clinging to it. We lived ethically, choosing honesty, kindness, and moderation, discovering that integrity brings freedom. We embraced generosity, learning that giving, even in small ways, fills both giver and receiver with joy. We spoke truthfully, using words as seeds of healing rather than weapons of harm. We learned to let go of emotions, observing anger and sadness as passing storms, releasing what no longer serves us. We shared joy, practicing mudita, celebrating the success of others, multiplying happiness instead of shrinking in envy. And finally, we reconnected with nature, remembering that the sky, the trees, the rivers, and the earth itself are our greatest teachers. These are not abstract philosophies. They are daily practices. They are habits you can carry into your morning coffee, your commute, your family meals, your moments of grief and joy. The Buddha said in the Heart Sutra, "Form is emptiness, emptiness is form." This means everything is interconnected, nothing stands alone. When you breathe, when you give, when you speak kindly, when you celebrate others, you are not just changing yourself, you are changing the world around you. Science, too, affirms this path. Harvard studies show that gratitude rewires the brain. NIH research proves that meditation lowers stress hormones. Psychology confirms that compassion heals trauma, generosity increases happiness, and truthful speech strengthens relationships. So here is your invitation. Do not try to practice all 10 habits at once. Choose one. Practice it this week. Let it settle into your life like a seed. Next week, add another. Slowly, patiently, these habits will weave themselves into your daily rhythm, and peace will no longer feel distant, it will feel natural. And here is your final challenge. In the comments below, share which habit you will begin with. Will it be breathing? Gratitude? Compassion? By sharing, you declare your intention, and you inspire others to walk beside you on this journey. Remember, peace is not the end of the road. Peace is the road. Every step, every breath, every act of kindness is already peace in action. So, as we close this journey, I thank you for walking with me. May you breathe with ease. May you live with compassion. May you accept change with wisdom. May you speak with truth. May you give generously. May you celebrate joy. May you rest in nature. And above all, may you find the happiness that has always been within you. If this journey has touched you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need peace today. Together, let us build a community of practice, a sangha of seekers, so that peace and happiness ripple out far beyond us. Namaste. May you be well. May you be free.